There comes a moment in a woman's life when she quietly realizes that not every lesson in life comes from happiness. Some lessons come from heartbreak. Some come from loneliness. Some come from giving too much of yourself to people who never truly valued you. And before turning 40, every woman reaches a crossroads. Either she continues living emotionally exhausted, or she finally learns the painful truths that protect her peace, her dignity, and her relationship with Allah. Because age alone does not make a woman wiser. Pain does, healing does, and returning to Allah does. So tonight, let's talk about the lessons many women learn too late, before life forces you to learn them the painful way. 1. Stop begging for love from people who cannot value you. One of the most painful mistakes a woman can make in life is spending years trying to convince people to love her properly. Some women wake up every single day emotionally exhausted because they are constantly fighting for affection that should have come naturally. They keep giving more of themselves, hoping that one day people will finally appreciate their loyalty, their softness, their sacrifices, and their patience. But the heartbreaking reality is that some people only know how to receive love. They do not know how to return it. And sadly, many women realize this far too late. They spend years tolerating disrespect because they fear being abandoned. They stay silent about things that hurt them deeply because they are afraid of losing people. They forgive endlessly, not because they are healing, but because they are terrified of being alone. Slowly, without noticing, they begin abandoning themselves just to keep others comfortable. This is how emotional exhaustion begins. A woman starts questioning her own worth because someone failed to value her correctly. She begins wondering if she is too emotional, too sensitive, too caring, or too difficult to love. But the truth is, not every person is capable of appreciating a sincere heart. Some people only recognize value after they lose it. And this is why chasing validation from human beings can become spiritually dangerous. Because the more a person depends on people to feel worthy, the more broken they become when people disappoint them. Many women enter their later years carrying invisible emotional scars because they spent their younger years begging for the bare minimum, begging for honesty, begging for attention, begging for reassurance, begging to be treated with kindness, and eventually they realize something painful. Real love never needs to be forced. The people who truly value you do not make you constantly question your place in their life. Islam never teaches a woman to humiliate herself emotionally just to keep people around. Yes, Islam teaches mercy, patience, forgiveness, and softness. But it also teaches dignity. Allah did not create you to spend your life shrinking yourself so others can feel powerful. Sometimes Allah removes people from your life because they were distracting your heart from Him. Sometimes the heartbreak you cried over was actually protection in disguise. Sometimes rejection is not punishment, it is redirection. There are people you cried over who would have destroyed your peace if they had stayed. And one of the strongest things a woman can learn before turning 40 is that not everyone deserves unlimited access to her energy, emotions, and heart. A wise woman learns to stop over-explaining herself to people who already decided not to understand her. She stops chasing people who only remember her when they feel lonely. She stops draining herself trying to prove her value to those who benefit from making her feel small. Because eventually she realizes something powerful. If Allah values you, then the opinion of people loses its power. Human beings change constantly. Their feelings change, their loyalty changes, their attention changes. But Allah sees every silent sacrifice you made, every tear you hid, every moment you stayed kind while your own heart was hurting. And when a woman truly understands her worth in the sight of Allah, she stops begging people to choose her. Because she finally understands that peace is far more valuable than forced love. 2. Protect your peace more than your image. One of the most exhausting ways to live is constantly trying to maintain an image that is slowly destroying your inner peace. Many women spend years worrying about how they are perceived by others. They want everyone to think they are strong, successful, happy, emotionally stable, and perfectly put together. They become so focused on protecting their image outside that they completely neglect what is happening inside their hearts. And this is why some women look fine in public but quietly cry when they are alone. Because appearances can hide pain very well. Some women are emotionally drowning while still smiling for everyone around them. They are mentally exhausted but continue pretending they are okay because they fear judgment. They stay in toxic situations because they are worried about what people will say if they walk away. They tolerate disrespect because they do not want to disappoint family, friends, or society. Slowly they begin sacrificing their peace just to maintain an image. But one of the most important lessons a woman must learn before turning 40 is that peace is more valuable than pretending. There is no reward in destroying your mental and emotional health just to look acceptable in the eyes of people. Human beings are impossible to satisfy completely. No matter how much you sacrifice, some people will still criticize you, some people will still misunderstand you, some people will still judge you unfairly. And if you spend your life trying to keep everyone pleased, you will eventually lose yourself completely. That is why emotionally mature women stop performing for people. They stop forcing conversations that drain them. They stop attending places that suffocate their soul. They stop explaining themselves to those committed to misunderstanding them. And they stop carrying emotional responsibilities that Allah never asked them to carry. Because protecting your peace is not selfish. It is wisdom. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught balance, dignity, emotional control, and wisdom in dealing with people. Not every argument deserves your response. Not every criticism deserves your tears, and not every person deserves unlimited access to your life. Some people thrive on chaos. They enjoy emotionally draining, soft-hearted individuals because it makes them feel powerful. They provoke reactions, create unnecessary tension, spread negativity, and then act surprised when your heart becomes tired. This is why emotional boundaries are important. A woman who protects her peace learns when to stay silent. She learns when to walk away. She learns when distance is healthier than constant conflict. And most importantly, she learns that her emotional well-being matters too. There comes a point in life where protecting your peace becomes more important than protecting your image. Because image only satisfies people temporarily, but peace protects your soul. Many women spend years trying to appear perfect while secretly battling anxiety, sadness, emotional burnout, and loneliness. They become addicted to looking okay instead of actually becoming okay. But healing begins when you stop living for appearances. Healing begins when you accept that not everybody needs to approve of your choices. You do not need to explain every decision to people who are not carrying your pain. You do not need permission to protect your emotional health. And you do not need to stay in environments that constantly break your spirit just to avoid criticism. Some of the strongest women are not loud. They are not constantly proving themselves. They are not fighting for attention. They are simply at peace. A peaceful woman speaks differently, thinks differently, responds differently. Because when your heart becomes close to Allah, your desire to impress people slowly disappears. You begin valuing silence over drama, privacy over attention, healing over performance, and inner peace over public approval. And perhaps one of the greatest forms of emotional maturity before turning 40 is realizing that a calm heart is worth more than a perfect image. Because people may admire your appearance while never understanding your pain, but Allah sees every burden you silently carry. And the woman who protects her peace for the sake of Allah will always sleep with a lighter heart than the woman who spends her life trying to impress the world. 3. Heal before bitterness changes your heart. Life has a way of changing people quietly. Not always through major tragedies, but through repeated disappointments that slowly harden the heart over time. A betrayal you never expected. A prayer that felt delayed for years. A relationship that drained you emotionally. A person you trusted deeply who suddenly changed. Moments where you gave your purest love, only to receive silence, disrespect, or abandonment in return. These experiences leave wounds inside the heart that people cannot always see. And one of the saddest things that can happen to a woman before turning 40 is allowing pain to slowly transform her into someone she no longer recognizes. Because unhealed pain does not simply disappear. It changes behavior. It changes emotions. It changes the way a person sees life, people, and even themselves. Some women become emotionally cold because they were once too soft with the wrong people. Some stop trusting anyone because betrayal embarrassed them deeply. Some become angry at everything because life did not unfold the way they imagined. And some silently carry resentment for years while pretending they have moved on. But pain that is buried alive never truly dies. It waits quietly inside the heart until bitterness slowly takes over. And bitterness is dangerous because it changes a person gradually. At first, you simply become more cautious, then more distant, then emotionally guarded. Eventually, you stop allowing yourself to feel deeply at all because you fear getting hurt again. This is how many women lose their softness. Not because they were born cold, but because life hurt them repeatedly while nobody noticed. And perhaps one of the most powerful things a woman can do before turning 40 is heal before bitterness becomes her permanent personality. Healing does not mean pretending nothing hurt you. Healing means facing the pain honestly without allowing it to poison your future. Some women spend years replaying old memories in their minds, reopening conversations that ended long ago, revisiting betrayals Allah was trying to remove them from. They keep asking themselves questions that have no answers. Why did they treat me that way? Why wasn't I enough? Why did Allah allow this pain? But constantly living in old pain prevents the heart from experiencing peace in the present. You cannot heal while emotionally living in yesterday. Sometimes Allah allows painful endings because He knows certain people would have destroyed your future if they remained in your life. But many women become so attached to what they lost that they cannot recognize what Allah protected them from. Not every goodbye was meant to break you. Some goodbyes were meant to save you. And healing begins when you finally stop romanticizing what continuously hurt you. There are women who spend years missing people who only brought confusion into their lives, missing relationships that constantly damaged their self-worth, missing people who were emotionally unavailable, dishonest, selfish, or inconsistent. But loneliness can make painful things appear beautiful in memory. That is why emotional healing requires honesty with yourself. You must stop calling emotional suffering love. You must stop calling emotional neglect patience. And you must stop shrinking your pain just because others cannot understand it. Allah never intended for your entire life to revolve around wounds from your past. Your heart deserves peace too. One of the strongest forms of healing is forgiving yourself for what you tolerated when you were emotionally lost. Many women carry shame because they stayed too long, trusted too deeply, or ignored obvious red flags. But growth requires compassion toward yourself. You were trying to love with the knowledge you had at that time. And Allah sees the sincerity inside your heart even when others took advantage of it. Do not hate yourself for being soft-hearted. Do not hate yourself for caring deeply. Do not hate yourself because somebody failed to appreciate your sincerity. The wrong people can make a good woman question her entire worth. But another person's inability to value you does not reduce your value in the sight of Allah. Healing also requires letting go of the desire for revenge. Some people become so consumed by what happened to them that they spend years secretly hoping others suffer the same pain they caused. But revenge keeps the heart emotionally chained to the wound. True healing happens when your peace becomes more important than proving anything to anyone. There comes a point where emotionally mature women stop asking, "How do I make them regret losing me?" and start asking, "How do I reconnect with myself and Allah again?" Because healing is not about becoming colder. It is about becoming wiser without losing your goodness. The world already has enough emotionally broken people hurting others because they never healed properly. Do not allow your pain to turn you into someone who spreads the same darkness you once cried over. Protect your softness. Protect your sincerity. Protect your relationship with Allah. Yes, become wiser. Yes, create boundaries. Yes, protect your heart. But never let this dunya convince you that becoming emotionally numb is strength. Real strength is remaining kind after pain tried to harden you. Real strength is remaining hopeful after disappointment exhausted you. Real strength is still believing in Allah's mercy after life humbled you repeatedly. And perhaps one of the most beautiful things a woman can do before turning 40 is heal so completely that pain no longer controls her heart. Because healed women move differently. They no longer beg for closure from people who damaged them. They no longer chase those who walked away. They no longer destroy themselves trying to be loved correctly. Instead, they become calm, grounded, emotionally balanced, closer to Allah. And the woman who heals before bitterness consumes her heart enters the next chapter of life with peace instead of hidden anger. That kind of peace is priceless. 4. Build a relationship with Allah before loneliness finds you. One of the deepest realities of life is that eventually everyone experiences loneliness in one form or another. There are moments in life when people become busy, children grow older and create lives of their own. Friends slowly drift away. Relationships change. Messages stop coming. Phone calls become rare. And the people you once believed would always stay close to you suddenly feel distant. This is part of dunya. Nothing here is permanent. And one of the most painful things a woman can experience before turning 40 is realizing she spent most of her life emotionally attached to people while neglecting her relationship with Allah. Because when loneliness finally arrives, human beings often cannot save the heart. Only Allah can. Many women spend years searching for emotional fulfillment in people. They think peace will come through love, attention, marriage, friendships, validation, or constant companionship. But no matter how much affection people give you, the human heart was never designed to feel complete without its creator. That emptiness inside the soul cannot be healed by people alone. This is why some women are surrounded by people yet still feel emotionally empty inside. They laugh with others while secretly feeling disconnected within themselves. They seek comfort in conversations, entertainment, relationships, social media, and distractions. But when the night becomes quiet, their hearts still feel restless. Because the soul misses Allah. And the longer a person ignores that emptiness, the heavier life begins to feel. Sometimes Allah allows loneliness not to punish you, but to bring you back to Him. Because loneliness has a way of revealing what truly lives inside the heart. When distractions disappear, when people disappoint you, when nobody fully understands your pain, when life humbles you, suddenly your relationship with Allah becomes everything. That is why one of the greatest things a woman can do before turning 40 is build a private connection with Allah before difficult days arrive. Not a relationship built only during emergencies. Not worship that appears only when life becomes painful, but a real relationship, a quiet relationship, a sincere relationship. A relationship built in secret when nobody is watching. There is something powerful about a woman who turns to Allah before turning to the world. A woman who wakes up for tahajjud while everyone else is asleep. A woman who whispers her pain to Allah instead of constantly seeking sympathy from people. A woman who finds comfort in sujood instead of chasing temporary distractions. That kind of connection changes a person completely. Because the closer a woman becomes to Allah, the less dependent she becomes on people emotionally. This does not mean she stops loving people. It means people no longer control her peace. Many women suffer deeply because they attached their entire emotional stability to human beings. If someone gives attention, they feel valuable. If someone becomes distant, they feel worthless. If someone leaves, their entire world collapses. But human beings were never meant to carry the weight of your soul. People change constantly. Some love you during easy seasons but disappear during hardship. Some stay only while benefiting from your softness. Some promise forever but leave unexpectedly. And when your heart depends entirely on people, their absence can destroy you emotionally. But Allah never leaves. Allah listens even when nobody checks on you. Allah understands pain you cannot explain to anyone else. Allah hears the tears you hide from the world. Allah sees every sleepless night, every silent heartbreak, every fear inside your chest that nobody knows about. And perhaps this is why women who are close to Allah carry a different type of peace. Life still hurts them. People still disappoint them. They still cry. They still struggle. But deep inside, they know they are never truly alone. That certainty changes everything. One sincere moment with Allah can heal emotional exhaustion that years of people could not fix. Many women reach later stages of life regretting that they spent more time building connections with people than building closeness with Allah. They invested deeply into relationships while neglecting the one relationship guaranteed to remain forever. And dunya has a painful way of teaching this lesson eventually. The people you cry for today may not even remain part of your future. The people whose opinions consume your thoughts may eventually become strangers. The attention you once chased will fade. Beauty changes, circumstances change, relationships change, but your relationship with Allah remains. That is why emotionally intelligent women stop making people the center of their emotional universe. Because no human being can provide the peace that only Allah creates inside the heart. There comes a point in life where a woman realizes the world is too unstable to depend on emotionally. And this realization is not depressing, it is freeing. Because when your heart becomes attached to Allah first, disappointment from people hurts less deeply. You stop expecting perfection from human beings. You stop collapsing every time someone changes. You stop destroying yourself trying to keep everyone close. Because your heart already has a home with Allah. And perhaps one of the most beautiful forms of healing before turning 40 is learning how to enjoy your own company with Allah. Many people fear being alone because they have never built inner peace within themselves. Silence scares them, stillness scares them, being disconnected from distraction scares them. So they constantly surround themselves with noise just to avoid facing their own emptiness. But women who are spiritually connected to Allah experience solitude differently. They find peace in quiet moments. They enjoy making dua alone. They feel comfort reading Quran. They feel emotionally safe speaking to Allah about things nobody else understands. And over time, they begin realizing that loneliness with Allah feels lighter than companionship without peace. Some of the strongest women in this dunya are not those constantly surrounded by people. They are the women who learned how to stand emotionally with Allah when nobody else stayed. Women who cried in sujood instead of seeking revenge. Women who turned heartbreak into dua. Women who transformed loneliness into closeness with Allah instead of desperation for people. Those women become emotionally unshakable. Because once Allah becomes the center of your heart, people no longer have the power to completely break you. And maybe that is one of the greatest lessons a woman must learn before turning 40. People can accompany you temporarily, but only Allah can stay with your soul forever. So build that relationship now. Before loneliness forces you to, before heartbreak humbles you, before life strips away distractions, before you realize too late that you spent years chasing temporary people while neglecting the one who never abandoned you. Because the woman who walks closely with Allah never walks through life completely alone. Even during her hardest seasons, Allah remains beside her. And that kind of companionship is more valuable than anything this world could ever offer. 5. Stop delaying your own growth. One of the saddest realizations a woman can experience later in life is discovering that she spent years waiting instead of growing. Waiting for people to change, waiting for apologies, waiting for motivation, waiting for perfect timing, waiting for life to finally feel easier, waiting for someone else to save her emotionally. And before she realizes it, years quietly disappear. Time moves whether you heal or not, whether you grow or not, whether you change or remain emotionally stuck in the same painful patterns. That is why one of the most important lessons every woman must learn before turning 40 is to stop delaying her own growth. Because many women unknowingly become prisoners of old versions of themselves. Some are attached to painful memories. Some are attached to relationships that ended years ago. Some are attached to the person they used to be before heartbreak changed them. And some are emotionally waiting for closure that may never come. But growth requires release. You cannot enter a peaceful new chapter while emotionally living inside an old one. And this is where many women struggle. They want healing, but they keep feeding the wounds. They want peace, but they continue entertaining chaos. They want a better life, but they remain emotionally attached to habits, environments, and people that continuously drain them. Growth becomes impossible when comfort with familiarity is stronger than the desire for change. And sometimes the hardest truth to accept is this: the life you want may require becoming a completely different version of yourself. Many women delay growth because growth feels uncomfortable. Healing forces you to face yourself honestly. It forces you to admit certain people were harming you. It forces you to confront insecurities you spent years hiding. It forces you to stop blaming everyone else and finally take responsibility for your own emotional healing. And that process is painful. Because real growth is not just changing your appearance, your routines, or your surroundings. Real growth is changing your mindset, your emotional habits, your priorities, and your relationship with Allah. Some women spend years praying for peace while continuing behaviors that destroy their peace. They continue chasing unavailable people. They continue tolerating disrespect. They continue ignoring emotional wounds. They continue delaying repentance. They continue surrounding themselves with negativity. And then they wonder why life still feels heavy. But Allah cannot heal a heart that refuses to let go of what is hurting it. At some point, a woman must stop waiting for life to magically improve and start becoming intentional about her own transformation. Because nobody is coming to save you from the consequences of avoiding growth. And perhaps one of the most dangerous things in life is becoming comfortable in emotional stagnation. When a person stops trying to improve themselves, they slowly begin settling for less in every area of life. Less peace, less self-respect, less emotional discipline, less closeness with Allah, less hope, less purpose. This is why emotionally strong women eventually realize growth is not optional. It is necessary, especially before turning 40. Because the habits you ignore in your younger years often become the struggles that control your later years. If you do not learn emotional discipline now, life becomes harder later. If you do not heal unresolved pain now, it affects future relationships. If you do not build closeness with Allah now, the emptiness inside the heart grows deeper over time. And many women unfortunately reach later stages of life carrying the same emotional wounds they had years earlier, simply because they avoided healing when Allah was giving them opportunities to grow. Growth also requires letting go of the need for constant external validation. Some women delay their progress because they are too focused on how people will react to their changes. They fear judgment, they fear criticism, they fear disappointing others. So they remain trapped inside versions of themselves that no longer bring peace. But one of the strongest things a woman can do is disappoint people in order to finally stop disappointing herself. Not every version of you deserves to survive forever. Some versions of you were created during pain. Some versions of you were built around survival. Some versions of you were shaped by insecurity, fear, people-pleasing, emotional dependency, and loneliness. But Allah did not create you to remain emotionally trapped forever. There are women who still think like the insecure girl they used to be years ago. Still seeking validation. Still afraid of abandonment. Still over-explaining themselves. Still sacrificing peace to avoid rejection. But healing requires maturity. And maturity often begins when a woman stops asking, "Who will stay in my life?" and starts asking, "Who am I becoming?" Because eventually you realize that becoming the right person matters more than chasing the right people. A peaceful woman is not created overnight. She is built through painful lessons, through heartbreak, through loneliness, through disappointments that forced her to become emotionally wiser, through nights where nobody understood her except Allah. And over time, she becomes stronger quietly, not louder, not arrogant, not cold, just stronger. One of the biggest signs of growth before turning 40 is learning how to stop emotionally reacting to everything. In younger years, many women take everything personally. Every criticism hurts deeply. Every rejection feels devastating. Every disagreement ruins their peace. But emotionally mature women begin understanding something important. Not everything deserves access to your emotions. Some battles are distractions. Some people thrive on reactions. Some situations are tests of emotional discipline. And growth means learning when to stay silent, when to walk away, and when to protect your energy. Another painful reason many women delay growth is because they secretly fear change. Change feels uncertain. People become attached to familiar pain because unfamiliar healing feels uncomfortable. Even toxic environments can feel emotionally addictive when they become normal over time. This is why some women repeatedly return to situations Allah already tried to remove them from. They confuse emotional attachment with love. They confuse suffering with loyalty. and they confuse staying stuck with patience. But patience in Islam never means remaining somewhere that continuously destroys your soul. Sometimes growth requires leaving environments that no longer align with your peace. Sometimes growth requires distancing yourself from people who drain your iman. Sometimes growth requires rebuilding your identity completely after painful experiences. And yes, starting over can feel terrifying, but remaining emotionally broken for years is even more terrifying. One of the greatest forms of self-respect is refusing to stay the same after Allah shows you what needs to change. Because every painful lesson in life carries an invitation toward growth. Heartbreak teaches emotional boundaries. Loneliness teaches reliance upon Allah. Disappointment teaches wisdom. Betrayal teaches discernment. And suffering often teaches sincerity in worship. Women who grow through pain become different. They stop begging for attention. They stop chasing people who ignore them. They stop explaining their worth endlessly. They stop abandoning themselves to keep others comfortable. Instead, they begin protecting their peace carefully. And perhaps one of the most beautiful things about growth is that it slowly changes what you tolerate. Things that once felt normal begin feeling heavy. Conversations that once entertained you begin feeling empty. People who once had access to your heart begin losing influence over your emotions. Because growth changes standards, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. And one of the clearest signs that a woman is emotionally maturing before turning 40 is that she becomes more focused on inner peace than external attention. She no longer needs to prove herself constantly. She no longer competes for validation. She no longer destroys her mental health trying to keep everyone happy. Because she finally understands a calm soul is more valuable than public approval. And perhaps the most powerful part of growth is realizing that Allah was never trying to destroy you through your difficult seasons. He was trying to rebuild you. The delays were shaping you. The heartbreaks were teaching you. The loneliness was redirecting you. The disappointments were forcing emotional maturity. And the pain was slowly leading you back toward Allah. Nothing was random. Every difficult chapter carried lessons your soul needed. And maybe before turning 40, the greatest thing a woman can do is stop mourning the person she used to be and start appreciating the stronger, wiser, calmer woman Allah is helping her become. Because growth may feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but remaining emotionally stuck for years hurts far more. And the women who finally stop delaying their healing, their peace, their repentance, and their emotional growth eventually discover something beautiful. Life becomes lighter when you stop resisting the person Allah is trying to help you become. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. Before turning 40, a woman does not need to become perfect. She simply needs to become closer to Allah, wiser with her heart, and more protective of her peace. Because life will humble everyone eventually. Beauty fades, people change, and many things in this dunya never last forever. But the woman who learns to heal instead of becoming bitter, the woman who stops begging for love from people and starts seeking closeness with Allah, the woman who protects her peace, values her dignity, and grows through pain instead of collapsing from it, becomes truly unbreakable. So, if you are listening to this today, perhaps Allah wanted your heart to hear these reminders before it became too late. May Allah heal every exhausted heart, replace your pain with peace, protect you from people who drain your soul, and allow you to enter every new chapter of your life with dignity, wisdom, and closeness to Him. And remember, some of the strongest women are not the loudest ones. They are the women who suffered quietly, healed privately, and returned to Allah sincerely.